thank you so much for having me. I apologize, my Spanish is not very good, so I'm going to speak in English and speak slowly. In December last year, there was a case of a 5-year-old girl in my country who was found raped and murdered. There was a 24-centimeter wooden stick that had been pushed up her vagina, and her body had been mutilated. A few months later, there was another case of a 15-year-old young girl whose body was found gang-raped, again, cuts all over her body, private parts mutilated, with her lungs ruptured. And when young girls, some young girls in my country are not facing the most grotesque violence and crimes against their body, you have over 27% of young girls under the age of 18 who are being married off. And once they get married off, if a husband rapes his wife, it is not a crime in my country. The definition of rape in my country has an exception that says no man can be charged with sexually assaulting his wife. And 1 out of every 3 men in my country have admitted to having forceful sexual relationships with their wives. Yet, marital rape is not a crime. And after facing all of these struggles and day-to-day discrimination, if a woman chooses to get financial independence and go out and work and try to have autonomy, she suffers through the gender pay gap. There's a 24.8% gender pay gap in India. And make no mistake, these issues are not specific to just India. After having spent a few days here in your beautiful city and country, I realized that we're facing the same struggles, that we're facing the same fight. So this is why I do the work that I do. I started an organization called She Says that looks at fighting for gender equality. We're a youth-led organization run completely by young people with a simple mission to educate, empower, and rehabilitate women and society at large to live in a gender-equal society, not 10 years later, not 15 years later, not the next generation, but now, today. But I also know that running an NGO is not easy. I have done it for long enough to realize that, when you go to people and expect them to do the right thing and support your work because it is the right thing to do, people just don't do that. They don't care enough. So as an organization, what are the successes we've had? What are the failures we've had? What are the challenges we've faced? And through it all, how have we managed to succeed to today be looked at as one of the foremost organizations for gender equality in India? Is by, from day one, thinking of us as a social entrepreneurship model and really focusing on innovation. We invested in a few strategies. One, having strategic partners. Because we realized that how do we get out of the bubble of people who already care about gender equality, the bubble of people who already care about women's rights and issues. And the only way we could have maximum outreach and impact is by partnering and collaborating with different organizations and agencies. We partnered with Twitter to be their online safety partner. We partnered with Facebook to develop communities for women to speak and share their issues. We partnered with Global Citizen, which is a huge music festival, where we spoke about relevant issues that women in India go through. We partnered with the United Nations. We partnered with other government agencies. We had the German consulate translate our website for us in Germany. We had the Canadian consulate that we work with to run feminist programs and initiatives. Because we realized that if we have to deal with these issues, we need to bring as many people as we can on board and have different partners that will give us access to different groups of people and different networks that we can leverage. After this, we had the second strategy in mind of building a brand and building a strong identity, where if people looked at us, they would know that we're an unapologetically feminist organization that will celebrate women having control over their body, that will advocate for women's rights, and that is run by young people, that is led by young people. We tied up with music festivals where we had police personnel carry signages that said no dress code, know your penal code, so that if a woman feels violated or is abused in a music festival, she doesn't have to worry about a policeman asking her, what were you wearing? Why were you at a music festival? Why were you out late in the night? She knows that her rights are safeguarded. Another thing, the kind of messagings that we pushed for, we partnered with bars where we had grab a drink, not a stranger, because we know that straight up going and telling men don't touch, don't abuse doesn't really work. So how do we have that unique identity and brand and voice where people can look at messagings and relate it to our organization and feel like they can support the work that we're doing? This is a campaign that we run that I will speak to you more about shortly as well. And the third strategy that worked for us was from the very beginning focusing on ICT, leveraging social platforms. Because the issues that we're fighting are huge. We have a lot of people who oppose us, a lot of people who do not like young people being at the forefront, advocating for change, lobbying for change, so they will push back. So how do we as an organization survive? Is by raising an army of supporters that will lobby behind us, that will stand behind us. And the way we raise this army of supporters is through our strategic partners, is through the networks that we have access to, is through the brand building exercises that we do where people can look at causes and relate to the messagings that we're putting across. And also through our social media messages, where they realize that we are tapping onto current day-to-day issues that affect women. And they feel like they can lend their support towards us as well. Having said all of this, we've also faced a lot of successes. Because of the strategies that we've used, we've had people like President Obama recognize our work, President Emmanuel Macron recognize our work, the United Nations has celebrated and recognized our work. But not everything has been easy and accolades. We've also faced a lot of failures, and I want to talk to you all about the failures, because often that's something that we don't really talk or acknowledge in public formats. In India, only 12% of women use sanitary napkins or menstrual hygiene products. The rest of the population are forced to use cloth, ash, plastic, sand, dried leaves as alternatives to feminine hygiene products. And we are still taxed 12% on menstrual hygiene products, even though 80% can't use sanitary napkins because of the cost associated with it. So as an organization, we said this is not okay. It is discriminatory to tax women on sanitary napkins, and we decided to do something about it. We spent months of research, we lobbied hard, we found as much information as possible to petition to our government authorities to drop the tax on sanitary napkins. We thought that would be tough. We thought lobbying and mobilizing against the government that does not have even one woman in the finance ministry would be tough. But the actual challenge was waking up one day and getting a call from a journalist that a member of parliament from the opposition party had copied my petition word for word, put her name on it, and then called it the opposition party's campaign, and put it out everywhere. And what was my comment on this? I'm looking at my work being written by another member of parliament, and what am I supposed to do suddenly? She launched a change.org petition that got millions of likes. And suddenly the worry was that the government is not going to look at this cause seriously because they look at it as an opposition party cause. And we didn't know what to do. How do we fight against a member of parliament who's in a position of power and has all the access to resources and money that as an organization, unfortunately, we just don't? I reached out to her team. And I'll always remember what her team member told me, because I never felt as small as I did when that guy had the audacity to use my work, copy my work word for word, not even have 2 minutes of patience to change a few words here and there, so it doesn't look like it's entirely my work. And he tells me, you play in your league, we'll play in our league. Do whatever you want to, we're not going to work together, even though I reached out to him and said, how can we work together? So well, that is exactly what we did. We went back to our strategies that had worked for us. We used innovation, we used communication, we used our branding, and we launched a campaign. So we brought celebrities on board, we brought influencers on board, we did not spend 1 rupee at all. And in less than 24 hours, we reached over 24 million people on Twitter alone and launched the largest campaign globally for tax-free menstrual hygiene products. And we showed the Member of Parliament what playing in our league, using youth power, using innovation, using resilience, that is the only option that we had, looks like. Because all the capacity, after that, every work that she did to talk about this issue only helped us. Because now, anytime and every time we spoke about this issue or looked at it online, it referred back to the cause that we were promoting. So that is one failure, but yet success. Another failure that I constantly have and struggle with is the case of a 5-year-old child who had come to us in December 2016 after being sexually abused and raped. Till date, her medical report of a rape kit has not come to us. Till date, I have a father call me up every sometime asking me what's happening, what is the update, how do I not lose hope in the system? A struggle to not lose hope when you constantly systems failing you is a struggle that families who are speaking up have, is a struggle that organizations have. I was at a space yesterday where activists were asking me, how do you continue to do the work that you do? How do you not lose hope? And to be honest, that is a struggle. That is a challenge that I face day to day. But the only thing that I have to keep telling myself is giving up is not an option. Because the reality that I spoke to you all a few slides ago is happening on a constant basis. So giving up is not an option. We have to do better. And speaking of doing better, here is my call to action to people in this space. Firstly, thank you for showing up for these issues, for these causes. Thank you for that. But having said that, now that I have you here, if you all are running businesses, hire women, promote women, make sure you all are paying them the same as you would pay her male counterpart. And if gender equality is not an issue that you care about specifically, I mean, you should, but if it isn't, care about some other issue. Hunger, poverty, climate change, resilient infrastructure, farming issues, care about some issue. But your business needs to have an integrated social impact model. In today's day and age, it is not okay to only chase bottom lines and profits and not think about the impact that your work is having. Your development is not sustained if it is not helping the communities that your work is in. So we know this for a fact, that if you're only chasing bottom lines, if you're only chasing profit, that is a fail model. Speaking of another fail model, machism. How do we as a people and as a culture start unlearning behaviors where we realize that we have to move away from this machism culture where a man feels like a woman going out and working somehow makes him less of a man. We need to realize and celebrate and realize that it is the weak men, it is weak people who think like that, and that real men and real people in society realize that the only way our communities will progress and our societies will progress if women are considered as equal partners and have access to the same opportunities. So that is the message I will leave you here with. How do we look at the workspaces that we are in and expect our employers to do better by us? If you are running an organization, how can you do better by the communities that you are in? And how can we together, collectively, address the problems that we are facing? Because if we don't do that, if we don't do something today, if we don't do something right now, if we don't evaluate our work models right now, we're losing too many young lives, we're losing too many people who don't have the access to platforms and opportunities and spaces that you and I do. So how do we do better is the question that I will leave you with. Thank you so much.